Hey, everybody. It's Lisa from True North Homeschool Academy, and we are talking about management, just feeling overwhelmed and how to get on top of some of that overwhelmed feeling. So I want to talk about just really scheduling your kids' homeschool and a system that I've used that I found to be very effective. It's a little non-traditional. I mean, I don't get wild and crazy with non-traditional, but it's just a different way of thinking about education for your kids and how to gather the resources and supplies. I know we've talked about the framework and the pedagogy, and you can go back to that module and find out about different educational pedagogies. I love to talk education, but I want to share with you just a simple way to think about how to organize your kiddos' school stuff, okay? So what I've always done, not always, but what I've done for years and years is I make a list for each student, and I just have a piece of paper and I divide it into thirds, going long ways. You can do it either way you want, but I put their name and grade at the top, and then I talk about what my goals are for that student, and then I list the subject. So the goals are first. What are my goals for that student with their writing? What are my goals for that student with math? And then I list the subject, and you can do it either way, but I just find sometimes it's easier to think about goals because then you're looking at the big picture. You're taking kind of the long view. Subjects are so, they can be so limiting. And so I want you to really think about what are your goals for your kids overall. Just kind of blow up that subject area a little bit and think about goals for your kids. And then attach the subject to the goals, not the other way around. And then choose the curriculum. So I know when we go to homeschool conventions, and I've gone for years as a visitor and as a vendor and as a speaker, and there's so much cool stuff at those homeschool curriculum events, aren't there? I mean, it's like every place you go is something amazing, and there's specials and there's great deals, and we're all looking for the magic bullet. I mean, I am too. We're all looking for that thing that is going to help our kid be the exceptional math student when they're just barely getting by. We're all looking for the spelling program that's going to take our kid from really struggling and frustrated with writing to not even worrying about spelling, and they're just writing like a champ, right? We're all looking for those things. But I want to tell you, if you focus on goals a little bit more, you're not going to succumb so much to that siren song of curriculum, and you're going to save yourself some money. Now, if you do have a student who is struggling in an area like with spelling, my two mathy kids were my kids who struggled the most with spelling, and they really struggled. I mean, it wasn't just like a small struggle. One of my kids was in a co-op, a writing co-op, and one of the other kids, like kids do, made fun of her spelling because it was so, oh, I'll just say it, it was kind of tragic. And so she didn't want to write anymore because of that incident. And so I really was on the lookout for a spelling program that would give her confidence and help her out. And I found it. So if you're looking for a good spelling program, Spelling UC, in my opinion, is brilliant. It's one of the best spelling programs on the market because it visually chunks spelling for the kids. So that's my 2 cents worth on spelling. Go for it. But I do think if we go for goals, we don't get locked into a lot of curriculum that we might not need. My kids who struggled in spelling were phenomenal writers, but they stunk at spelling. I didn't need a whole English language arts program. I just needed a spelling program. And so I think those goals help us to just break down and deconstruct those curriculum packages. We might not need a whole curriculum package, and we might get stuck with an $800 package that we don't like. It doesn't sing to us. It doesn't help our kids, and it's just a guilt trip sitting on our shelf, and nobody needs that. So again, just break down how are you going to approach this year with each student. And having a really good sense of scope and sequence is helpful. You know, the K through 3rd is really foundational in getting your kids number and reading literacy. 3rd through 6th is really building on those foundational skills and moving into more in-depth skills with that, like multiplication and division, fractions, decimals, and percents. And of course, you want them to be reading and writing really pretty competently by the end of 6th grade. Junior high is a great bridge, kind of, it's a bridge for everything, okay? From young adulthood to, from childhood to young adulthood, and they're bridging oh my word, they need sleep, they need good food, they need taken out and jogged every day, because they're probably grouchy and growing like a weed and don't know what to do with themselves. Um, and so they're honing skills, they're developing areas of interest. They can be really capricious, but they really need still a lot of direction and help with, if they don't have foundational skills at that point, if they don't know how to memorize well, if they don't know how to take even a fundamental notes with classes, if they can't listen well or any of those kind of things, you want to kind of gird them up in junior high, right? And then high school is just a great overview of stuff that they need for adulthood. No one's going to become a professional biologist in high school except the outlier, right? It's just a good overview of biology and chemistry and physics. You want your kids to have the pieces that they need to enter into the great conversation of culture. That is really what high school is about. It's really overview, and it sets them up for adulthood. And then, of course, later high school is really about launching your student into adulthood, wherever they're going to go from high school. If they're going to go to college and university or VOTEC school or an apprenticeship or marriage, the military is a great option as well, or a combination of those things. You want to set them up for a successful launch, right? So you do want a good scope and sequence, and if you need any help with that, we have advisors at True North Homeschool Academy. We love to help people get where they need to go and help them understand scope and sequence and all that kind of stuff, and ages and stages of development, because there definitely are ages and stages of student development. But I want to talk to you really quickly too about the core four. And these are the academics that, regardless, K through 12, your students probably you're gonna want to introduce your kids to, and that is math, English, science, and history. So those are the core four, and you're going to want to kind of address those K through 12 in some manner or another. Of course, you know, you're introducing your kids, you're doing a great overview. You're helping them become more familiar with it as they move on, and then hopefully they'll gain some mastery in some areas before they leave high school. So again, overview, familiarity, and then mastery. In the classical world, we call that grammar, dialectic, and rhetoric stages. Most kids don't really hit full rhetoric stage in high school, but it's just a great framework to think about learning. So those are the core four, and you're going to want to think about those regardless of what age or grade they're in. I know social studies is a big term. I don't really consider social studies as a homeschooler, and I never really have. We've been super history focused and have replaced social studies with history. Of course, there's some great community helper kind of curriculum out there, but it doesn't take a year to teach your kids community helpers, right? I mean, in my opinion. But there's some really good videos in YouTube that are really fun as well. And so, so you might hear about subjects in public school that you don't necessarily hear about or consider or think about as a homeschooler. ELA is a term, English Language Arts. It's not really a term you hear a lot in the homeschool world, but English is, everybody needs to learn how to write and communicate really well, regardless of if they're public or homeschooled. So I just want to talk to you just again briefly. This was just about how to think about organizing, how you choose curriculum for your kids. Again, goals, subjects, and then curriculum. And also you want to consider the core four. Now, I always talk about the core four plus more. And the core four, again, are math, English, science, and history. And then the and more are foreign language, art, music, Bible. What are some other ones? The extracurriculars. In our house, we did Bible studies all the way through. And that was a really important piece of our homeschool. I don't feel like we were really pedantic about it, but I wanted my kids to have a really good understanding and overview of the Old Testament, the New Testament, and church history. Again, we were really focused on history and literature in our homeschool, probably because that's my focus. It's where I naturally live. And then foreign languages were really important to us because, again, they talk about culture. It really helps your kids understand how to organize their thoughts. If you're a good writer, you're a good thinker. And foreign language actually helps you understand your language much, much better. So we really emphasized foreign language studies as well. And then my kids all had different areas of interest that we tried to pour into as we went. So I would love to hear about how you organize your homeschool, if there's a certain method that you use or certain tips and tricks that you have, and what subjects that you really love. Drop me a note in the True North Collective or send me an email. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks.